Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
Hey guys, Jody Burkeen here with the Man Up God's Way podcast, and this is a special edition today. I'm really excited about what we've got going on here. We've got some guests that are joining us today to talk about The Blind, the new movie coming out about the Duck Dynasty family, Phil and Kay. And if you get an opportunity, you need to go see that. That is coming out into theaters today and tomorrow. Make sure that you head to the theaters, and we actually have the director from The Blind here today, Mr. Andrew Hyatt. Andrew, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm still standing, so I'm I'm excited for people to get out there and see it. Finally, it's been a journey.
I can't even imagine. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we want to hop into the movie and kind of get into the minutia of what it takes to direct it and how you got involved with the Robertsons.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll probably share too much or too little, and we can go from there. But I grew up in a small town in Colorado. I never really understood that film was a job. I don't know why that never occurred to me. Just like people surely don't get paid to do this. They don't get, but I don't know where I thought the actors came from. I don't know where I thought the stories came from, but it just never occurred to me that this was a career path. So I was an athlete growing up. Went to Loyola Marymount University on a scholarship, and it was actually my mom that I was signed up for the business school, and she pulled me aside. Oh man, it must have been six weeks out from the start of the school year, and she really was the one that said, "You don't seem very excited about this business thing. Is that really what you're interested in and you want to do?" And I kind of said, "Well, yeah, I mean, isn't that what you're supposed to do? You just get into business and all that." She said, "Yeah, but this is an opportunity for you. There's a moment here that you could, if there's something you want to pursue, you should try it." And I'd always been interested in film, always been interested in stories. I used to write my own little, comic books and stories all the time. I was just very fascinated with it. So I said, well, maybe I could try the film school. This is me not knowing that Loyola Marymount's film school is probably in the top 5 in the country.
Wow.
Very, very difficult to get into. And by the grace of God, I just had an in already being there through the soccer program. So I put together a portfolio maybe in a week. I had to kind of, go shoot a little short film and all this. And thankfully they let me in, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people. It was the first time in my life that I was in this dorm with a bunch of just absolute nerds, and it was amazing. There was no, I got to show off, I got to do this. It was like, these guys wanted to sit around and talk about old movies all night. I mean, it was incredible. And so I think just from there, I just fell in love with it. And I got a job in the industry. I had to work. I wasn't like somebody that could kind of pursue film and not work. So I got a job working for a producer as an assistant and learned a ton. That may come up later on in our talk of just the value of mentorship and just being around the right people and all that. And so here I am. This has probably been a 20 some year journey. And I think this was my 8th film that I've written and directed, 7th film. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful I get to tell stories about faith and redemption. And it's been amazing.
Awesome. So how did your story of faith and redemption come to play?
Yeah. How much time do we have?
We got all the time, all the time. I
Uh,
always tell people that I disciple, you need to have a 2 minute, a 10 minute, and a 45-minute version of your testimony ready to give.
I love it. I love it. I'll try for somewhere in the middle, eight
That
and a
sounds
half.
good. That's perfect.
So I grew up Catholic. My parents still were, I went to Catholic school and all that. So we went to mass and we did all that, but it was a very, they call it cradle Catholic. I don't know what the evangelical term is for that, but it's sort of, you do the things, but I don't know if there's really anything going on in your heart, kind of thing. And when I got to college, I would say within, I'll just say for a great narrative that it was the day I showed up, and I looked around and I saw, here I am going to school in Los Angeles. I'd never seen so many beautiful women in my entire life. All it was like, what is this place? What is going on? And I think, subconsciously or consciously just made a decision that it wasn't that I didn't believe in God anymore. It was just that God's not relevant to my life. It doesn't affect what I want to pursue and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I became an atheist, but it was definitely like, hey, God, like, you're cool, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And that went on for probably about 8 years. Even when I got into the industry, I did all the things that I'm sure everybody knows you can do in the industry, the parties, the drugs, the alcohol, all these things. And it wasn't until and really miserable, but you just sort of accept it and you say, well, this is just the way things are. This is life. And it really took, so I ended up getting a job a few years into the industry with a company called Empower Pictures. And the CEO of this was a guy named Steve McAveety. Steve had been Mel Gibson's partner at Icon for 30 some years. And this was sort of his kind of, I want to do my own thing at the end before I retire kind of company. And there was another guy there named John Shepard, who had produced a lot of fake films. And I walked into this company as sort of the cool Hollywood guy. And I was shocked. The first meeting I showed up to, these guys were praying. These men were praying in the room before the meeting. And I was like, this is weird. Like, what are these guys doing?
That's great.
Hey, and they'd always invite, it wasn't like, hey, you got to be in this room and you got to pray with us. It was always an invitation, right? Hey, come join us for prayer before the meeting starts. And I was always a little bit like, no, you guys do your thing. That's fine. But we got real business to talk about. Come on, guys. So I was there for 5 years, and it was just a slow, transformative experience. Again, I'd never been around Christian men in the industry. And if I had, they weren't really practicing.
Right.
I had never been around people that put faith above their careers. That was weird too to me. I'd never been around people that treated, employees in a way that was like, it's not really about the job. It's about how can we transform you and help you in your own endeavors and your own ministries. It was an incredible experience. But the moment of real foundational change was there was this gal that showed up. And she was a host on a TV show, and she was interviewing my bosses. And I still remember thinking to this day, holy cow, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. I've got to, who is this woman? Comes and goes. But about a month later, she shows back up. Whatever she was hosting, it was some kind of early stage TV show that didn't pan out. She interviewed then for an assistant job with my boss. I thought, wow, okay, this is incredible. And we started hanging out. Joanna's her name, my wife now. We started hanging out, and about 6 weeks in, we get to know each other pretty well. We're working side by side all the time. And she says to me, so you're a Christian? I said, yeah, of course I'm a Christian. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Love it.
And this was the first time in my entire life that somebody called me out.
Mm.
And I said, no, I'm a Christian. I grew up Catholic. I'm a Catholic, blah, blah, blah. She said, you're living with your girlfriend. I see you show up every day hungover. So you're partying out in Hollywood. How is that a Christian lifestyle? What are you talking about? And it really affected me. And I
Wow.
don't know if it was an ego or a pride thing, but it was like, okay, that really bothers me. Why does that bother me? And obviously, as you all know, it's not overnight, but it just started the wheels turning here and here, and it just really affected me. I started to go to mass again with Steve. Steve would go to daily mass around noon in Santa Monica. We were in Santa Monica, California. And I just started going with him. I don't know I don't think I had a plan, but I just started going. Conversations just started happening with others at the company. It was a great mix of Catholics and Protestants and non-denominational, all these things, but really solid Christian men. And they just kind of walked me through that journey of basically saying, look, it's in you, it's there. You gotta start living it. You gotta start breathing it.
Right.
This stuff has to become priority, and then everything else is going to fall in place for you. Not talking career wise or anything, but just as a good human being. So yeah, it was a journey. Like I said, it wasn't overnight. I had to rip off the Band-Aid at some things. I had to move out, broke up with my girlfriend, moved out because I was feeling like this doesn't feel right anymore. This is very convicting. And then it's just kind of snowballed from there into just again finding that purpose. And but like you all know, it's not an easy thing. You go through ups and downs and you fall flat on your face here and there. And but I'm just grateful it's changed my life. It's changed the direction of my life. I was making horror movies and bad video game movies, and to even think back then, if somebody would have come to me and said, hey, you're going to end up making some Bible movies and some faith movies, I would have said, absolutely not. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
No way. So yeah, that's sort of the overall. And now, if I can kind of leave off on one thing, it's been the transformation of, it's not about me.
Right.
It's not about me anymore. It's about, I'll do the work. I want to do the work, but God, you gotta show me what you want. You gotta guide me here. You gotta tell me the stories to tell. You gotta tell me how to tell these stories. And I don't know, there's such a beautiful freedom in that, right? When you just give it over and you say, hey, I'm here to do the work, but whatever that means, I have no expectations. I'm just here to do the work. And so that's kind of a recap. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome. Praise God. I know what you mean, because I remember the first time, I preached, literally my first words out of my mouth were, hell just froze over. I'm up here preaching. Like, it's kind of like, how did you never thought that, 20 years later you'd be doing these things. And I can imagine what it was like to all of a sudden start directing these Bible movies. And it's like, oh my goodness, kind of a shell shocker. So you married your wife. Do you guys have any kids yet?
Yeah, we've got 5 kids.
Awesome.
4 girls, 1 boy. Yeah, we've been married 13 years, and yeah, just it's a process every day, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've got 4 kids myself as well.
Beautiful.
So I get it. Congratulations. So why don't you walk us up? You tell us about some of the movies that you directed, and let's kind of move into The Blind there.
Sure. So I made a film, a really tiny film called Full of Grace. This was probably 6-7 years ago, with no expectations. I had actually, this is probably an important thing to know before we get into The Blind, because it kind of frames a little bit of why I jumped on the project. But I made this sci-fi thriller years ago called The Last Light. And it ended up doing really well. It ended up winning a bunch of these very strange horror thriller festivals that are out there. And I had agents and managers at the time, and there was this moment where basically they said, look, people are loving this film. We're going to get you out there. We're going to put you in front of all these studio heads and these executives. And our marriage at the time was pretty rocky. We had decided that I was going to go out and do these films on my own, and that's not healthy. You know, it ended up being 3-4 months away from my wife, and you know, you're kind of in, you know, unfortunately, a lot of film sets, they feel like summer camp a little bit. You know, it's kind of like, hey, we all have a free pass. You know, we all can get drunk together every night and do these things. It's really not a healthy environment unless you create that environment, which we now try to do. But anyway, I was taking these meetings with the heads of these studios, and no joke, it was people saying, hey, we love this film. What do you want to do? You know, we want to work with you. What do you want to do? We got a stack of scripts here. You can direct any of them. Or is there something you want to do? You know, and I'm talking about Sony and Paramount and Universal and Warner Brothers. I'm talking about the big boys. I had this thought, and I still remember it. And again, for dramatic purposes, I'll say it was within, you know, 48 hours, 24 hours. I don't quite remember how long it was, but it was around then. I had this thought after these weeks of meetings. Things are not going well with my marriage. You know, people get divorced all the time. It's probably for the best. I've got this other trajectory. It's not working out. We're not doing this thing right. So I had this thought. I remember this thought pops into my brain, and it was a serious consideration. From that moment, and again, whether it was 24 hours, 40 hours, doesn't matter. I went from ready to direct whatever big movie I wanted, whatever situation I wanted to put myself into, to nothing. Radio silence. God didn't just close the door. It was like close the door, lock the door, bricked it up.
Oh my goodness.
I can't get a phone call back.
Wow.
I can't get an email back. I call my agents and managers every day. What's going on? I just had this great meeting. They said these things. We don't know. They're not getting back to us.
He said, what door?
Yeah, exactly.
So I go through and it's like terrifying, you know, if you've ever, well, it doesn't matter these days, wherever you live, it's expensive.
Right.
But you know, 1 month of no work, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 18 months, no work.
Oh my gosh.
I started applying to Starbucks, started applying to Costco. I can't even get an interview. Not that I have tangible skills as a filmmaker to do anything else, but I can't get a job. I can't get a job interview. So we burn through all of our savings. And we end up packing up we sell everything. We lose our lease. We pack up the car. My oldest daughter's 2 at the time. So we have a 2-year-old. We pack up the car. And we're like, what do we do? We can't afford LA. What do we do? So we end up driving up north. And we end up living in my in-laws' basement for the next 1.5 years.
Wow.
I'm still trying the dream, but I feel like the dream's over. You know, it's done. I don't know what you're doing, God. I'm mad at God. I'm super angry. It's like we're not on speaking terms right now, right? And this is important to the story. Sorry, it's taking me a while to get there.
Okay.
But good. I get this call. This was probably, we had moved into my in-laws. I get this call out of the blue. I don't know how this guy got my number. I get this call out of the blue from this guy named Eric Groth, out in St. Charles, Illinois. And it was a random call. He said, hey, you're the guy that did The Last Light? Uh-huh. Oh, I saw that movie. Are you a Christian? Yes. Oh, I thought so, because there were so many themes and so many, great things in there I could tell. And I'm sitting here thinking, how did you get my number? Who is this guy? He goes, so I'm a youth pastor out in St. Charles, Illinois. And I just want to know if you'd ever be interested in writing a Bible movie. And I wish I could say, oh man, yeah, like my life's changed. I said, no, thank you. Absolutely not. Appreciate it though. Thanks. So he says, oh, no worries. Okay. So hang up. Another year goes by because it was almost a year to the date. He must have had it on his calendar. And by the way, I'm not working during any of this. You know, we're on food stamps up here in Washington. About a year later, and at this point, God and I had wrestled through a lot of things, as you can imagine. I mean, really wrestled.
Wow.
I get this. I'd kind of given up. I really had it about film being even a thing. You know, I'm still trying to get work in town, and I get this call again out of the blue, same guy, and he just says, "Hey, I know it's been about a year since we chatted, and I just wanted to check in again. Are any interest in doing Bible movies? If not, totally cool. I'll leave you alone." And at that point, I was just like, "Sure, man, whatever."
Right.
Again, it wasn't this revelation or anything. It was just like, you know what, I got nothing else to do, so yeah, let's sit and chat. So I meet with this guy. They fly me out. I meet with this guy, and you know, it's all the things of the hallmark of like a church. You know, hey, we've got this wealthy guy who goes to church with us, and he's willing to put in $30,000 to make a movie. It's like $30,000. Like, dude, like, okay, yeah, let's see. Maybe we make a short film. We'll make a short. And I said, what do you want to make the movie about? And he said, honestly, it's up to you. You make it about whatever you want. So I just started praying, and that's where a lot of this conversation is gonna go, which is just saying, God, this seems so silly to me, but what do you want to do? What should we do? And I just felt this real specific call to go back to I just felt it in my spirit of this, go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning. I was like, oh, okay. So I was praying over it. I just felt like, you know, I've never seen anything that looked at the last days of Mary's life. You know, here we have technically the first Christian, right? The first person to say yes to Christ. What was her experience after the fact? We don't know.
Right.
And then I started to kind of read and do all that. And then I started reading, oh, Peter. Oh man, look at all this stuff in Acts about Peter struggling to figure out, where's the church at? Are we doing this? Are we not doing this? Are we circumcising people? Are we not circumcising people? What are we doing? You know, all this drama of like, okay, this is pretty fascinating. So we just kind of embark on this crazy idea of, let's just make a movie. We shot it in 10 days about the last week of kind of Mary's life, and how the church kind of transitions into what is Peter really doing here in the situation. He's got other churches questioning everything he's doing. He's kind of going back into the past and thinking of, okay, what did Christ tell me? He told me this, and it's not quite helpful with this, you know, all this kind of broiled stuff. So we make this movie full of grace, no expectations. We don't even have a distributor. It wasn't even a movie until we started editing it. It was like, hey, we could probably make this an 85-minute thing. And we start just traveling around and showing it just everywhere we can. So we end up on the road for about a year. We go everywhere, all around the world. You know, we're showing it in Italy. We're showing it in Bethlehem. We screened it to Palestinian Christians in Bethlehem. And it was the first time in my entire life that people were watching this movie, and all glory to God here. This isn't an ego thing. People are watching this movie and they're in tears. And you're just saying, whoa, that person's like really moved over there. After the screening, people coming up to you saying, that's like, this mattered to me because of this. And there's something going on in their life. And so you start, wow, okay, maybe film and stories really do impact people's hearts and their minds. We make this little movie. I'll cut to the chase, which is about a year later, we do the last screening in Los Angeles. And it's just friends and family. Lo and behold, in the back, there are two executives from Sony Affirm, Rich Peluso and Josh Nadler. They come up to me after the movie and they're like, this is beautiful. We've never seen anything like this. It's a little small for us to distribute, but if you want to do another one, we would greenlight it right here and now. And I had felt the last couple of weeks before that screening, God kind of pushing me to Paul. And it was really a tell Paul's story. And I said, well, I was thinking about maybe tackling Paul next. And they said, we've been looking for a Paul movie for 10 years. If you want to
Oh,
do the Paul
wow.
movie, we're in. And that was that. And then about a
Wow.
year and a half later, we're in Malta with Jim Caviezel and James Faulkner shooting the Paul movie.
Wow.
Anyway, that's a long story to get to. Here we are talking about The Blind now. It's been an incredible journey.
Wow, that is great. Yeah, I have seen the Paul movie. It was a really, really well done movie. You did a great job with that too. So you can just tell that um, people are finally understanding that Christian movies need to have the Hollywood flair behind it, but still keeping the message of the gospel within its reach. And you did a really good job with that too. So what a great testimony and a great story. I love watching God work in your life, and you're actually listening to what God has, even though you're wrestling with him. You're like, okay, I'll step out in faith. And for you to go from where you were to a $30,000 movie that ends up taking you to where you are now, that does take a lot of faith. So how did you get into the story with Phil and Kay Robinsons? How did that work out? So the new movie is called The Blind, and it's really the backstory of Phil and Kay. And how did you get into that?
Yeah, I had a producer friend of mine. We hadn't worked together, Brittany Yost, but we kind of knew each other from the same faith circles. And she had sent me the script and said they're looking for a director. And I read the script and it was good, but it veered a little bit more towards the Duck Dynasty kind of brand of kind of a lot of humor, a lot of comedy, some anecdotal stuff, and again, all good stuff. But I felt like maybe not for me. I really, have kind of started to. I just really love redemptive stories. Really love, grittier stuff a little bit. And I had just happened. Well, nothing is happenstance, but we had that conversation. I thought, I remember watching the Duck Dynasty series, but it'd been years. And so I just started looking up Phil Robertson. And the first thing that popped up was him giving his testimony in front, one of these giant churches.
Right.
And I was just enthralled. I mean, I just didn't, and maybe I'm ignorant in this department, but I just had never heard his story. I just didn't know that was how, all these kind of crazy things. And so hearing that was so powerful. So I called Brittany back and said, hey, have you guys ever thought about, should this be the movie? Like, this is incredible. And it's true. And all this stuff happened to the family and to him. And she said, well, you could pitch it and you could see if the family is, it's going to be down to the family if they're into it.
Right.
And so we kind of came up with some ideas, working with a couple other great, all of them great. But Zach Dasher, producer on the film, he's Phil's nephew. He really was the one that kind of put all of this together. He loved that. He was like, I've always wanted to kind of tell this version, but we just didn't know quite how to get there. And so we went down, we met with Phil, and Phil really was just as simple as, do you think that will help people? And we just all said, yeah. Like, I think people are really struggling now. I mean, they've always been struggling, but especially over the last couple of years with COVID and
Yes, amen.
Jobs, and there's just the way the world is now. Like, people are really wrestling with a lot of heavy things. And so, yes, we think your story will really help people. And that was it. That was it. He said, great. Okay. That's all I care about. So that's kind of how, in a nutshell, kind of how I came on board. And then it's just been an incredible process. The family's been so supportive from day one. And I mean, you had a conversation with Willie, and they're just genuinely amazing people, and hard to find authentic people like that, to be honest.
Yes.
And that really are who they say they are. There's no sort of, in my spare time, I get in front of the cameras and do this, but I'm really this person over here. It's like they're the exact same people you've met, in person and then on TV. So that's kind of how just I got involved.
That is great. That is great. How long did it take you to film the movie?
We had about a 28 30 day shoot. So it was decent for a drama like this. We were probably down in Louisiana for Shreveport and Monroe for about 4 months, all said and done. And then of course, it takes forever to edit and sound design it and put music in and all these things. So yeah, it's been about I think I saw it on Instagram. Somebody was saying it might have been Zach or his wife. It's been like a 3-year journey
Oh,
to
wow.
literally today from start to
Oh
finish.
my goodness. Oh yeah. I don't have the patience for that. Like when I do something, I want it done yesterday.
I don't think
Wow.
I have the patience for it, but here we are.
Well, that is amazing. I have seen the movie. I've been blessed to be able to watch a preview of it, and I can tell you that it just grabs your heartstrings. And watching, my favorite part is when the pastor's sitting with Phil, and Phil's like, I don't. What am I supposed to do? And the pastor just looks at him and goes, "You have to die." Like, no, I just wrecked my world right then and there. So I don't want to give up much more of the movie because it gets better from there. But um what I loved about what you did and how you directed, the story is that it was authentic. It didn't feel fake, and I think a lot of pastors and leaders throughout the United States have this air of already figured it out and they lose that authenticity with their congregation or the crowd or their platform, whatever. And I think that's where people are wanting to know that, okay, well, they struggled just like I did. You look at Phil and Kay and all the Duck Dynasty people right now, and they're all multimillionaires, but it started off pretty rocky. They're all solid Christians, but it started off pretty rocky. You wouldn't have that if Phil hadn't gone through what he went through and then finds Jesus, and it changed generations after that. And the way that you told the story was amazing. I appreciate the way that you brought that in.
I appreciate that. No, you said it perfectly. It's like, it's amazing when you see this and you realize the ripple effect that it's had through not only Phil and Kay's relationship and with their kids, but also, grandkids and future generations. And you nailed it. Without Phil's heart change and conversion, none of this happens. There's no Duck Dynasty. Right. There's there's probably no family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's crazy.
Right. Well, what an amazing story. And it opens up tonight, correct?
It opens up tonight. So here we go.
All right. So people need to get out and get especially over the weekend. The first couple of weekends are huge for movies, and it kind of dictates where and how many more theaters will actually open it up to it. So make sure that you can get online at the blind. I think it's the Blind the Movie or Blind.
Theblindmovie.com. Yep.
Blindmovie.com. You can grab tickets, go to your local theater, and make sure that you get tickets there as well. And let's support this movie. If we as Christians want to see good quality movies, we have to get out and support these things. Don't wait till it comes on Netflix and all. Go out in the first few weeks and make sure that you support this movie. We've seen some great movies over this year come out, along with the Jesus Revolution and The Sound of Freedom. A lot of good movies that have really taken off and are being supported by the Christian fans. So make sure that you get out and do that. So that brings us up to where kind of the next phase that you're going into, Andrew, is into the new movie called The Heart Mender. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll introduce our other guests that are involved with this new movie called The Heart Mender.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting stuff. So based on Andy Andrews, best-selling author, based on one of his novels, fascinating World War II story that I don't think many people, I certainly didn't, many people know this part of the war, which was basically, the Nazi subs, German subs were right off the Gulf Coast of America for quite some time. And but at the heart of this, it's a love story. It's a beautiful kind of redemptive love story. Two people from very different backgrounds and histories coming together and realizing, that they're more akin to each other than not. And so we're really excited about it. I've just come on in the last couple months, and with the Noble Story Company guys, they've been incredible. And they've put a lot of heart and soul into this for a while now.
That's great. That's great. Well, that brings us into the noble story, guys. Andrew Teravsky. I knew I
Pretty
was going
close.
to
Teravskis, yes.
Teravskis. I knew I was going to mess it up. I got that.
I've known him
thick
for
tongue.
years and I still mess it
I
up.
know.
I'm not even worried about it.
So Andrew, another Andrew, won't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Noble Story and how you got involved, and then we'll bring Edgar in here in just a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew was mentioning that the blind was a 3-year process up until this date, and he's joined the Heartmender in the past couple of months. We're closer to that 3-year mark on the Heartmender. So we, as the production company, we're the ones who go out and find the stories that we think would make good movies. And this story was actually brought to us by our friend Edgar, who's here with us today. And we've known Edgar for a while, and we were just catching up one day and said, "Hey, Edgar, it'd be really fun to work together. Do you have any stories or any movies that you'd like to make?" And Edgar said, "Yeah, I got this one book written by a friend of mine, and I thought it would make a great movie." And we're like, "Okay, what's it about?" And he told us, "Well, it's about German U-boats in the Gulf of Mexico." And I was like, "Wait, hold the phone. What?" And I immediately went, even while we were still talking, went on my phone and bought it on Amazon, read it, I think, in one afternoon, and
Wow.
called Edgar up and said, "Edgar, we have to make this movie. Call your friend. Let's get the rights. Let's start working on this movie." And so that's led us to the process today. A little known fact, we actually developed this into a limited series before we adapted it into a feature film. So it's gone through quite a few adaptations, but it's just part of the movie making industry. Here we are. Now we're making it into a movie. We came across Andrew Hyatt. We were working on another movie at the time, and I had sent the script over to Andrew for directing consideration, and he really fell in love with that project. We ended up shelving that project, but started a conversation saying, "Hey, I've got this other project," and he wanted to read the script and said, "I can get behind this. This is a pretty cool story." So that's where we are today. We're pretty excited. We got Andrew's brought a lot of his team members from The Blind and from previous movies over to this project. So we're just stoked by the talent that's behind this thing. We're stoked by the powerful story that we get to bring to the screens.
Wow.
Excited for everyone to see this thing.
That is awesome. I love how God works in these ways, just kind of putting everything together, and brought you and Andrew Hyatt together, and obviously Edgar Struble. Struble, is that how you pronounce your last name, Edgar?
It's Struble. Yes, thanks.
Struble. Okay. All right. Well, so obviously you brought the idea to Andrew at Noble Story Company. How did you get a hold of it, and what made you think that this would be a good movie?
Yeah, that's quite a story too in itself. I try and do the cliff notes. Back in the late 70s and 80s, I was Kenny Rogers' music director, and toured with him for about 15 years. From him just starting off as a solo artist to being the Justin Bieber of the 80s.
Wow.
And
yeah.
During that time, we had a young comedian open for us who happened to be Andy Andrews. And I can't say that I was particularly chummy with him, but according to him, I was always kind to him. And I thought, it's one of the things I talk about. You never know when something like that can happen if you're just kind to people. And right. And by the way, Hyatt, I have a backstory very similar to yours, including the girl with the wife girl. Mine involves getting sober at a certain point in my life. So I can't imagine myself even being kind to somebody back in the 80s because I was just nuts then.
Wow.
But I was. And fast forward to about 10 years ago, I saw Andy Andrews speak at a Dave Ramsey event. and reached out to him prior to that event and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in the audience. Can I say hi?" And he's like, "Oh my goodness, yes! I haven't seen you in 20 years, and here's upgraded tickets." And after that, a box of stuff arrived on my doorstep, and it was every book and every DVD, or excuse me, audio CD of those books that Andy Andrews had ever written, including his 2 bestsellers. And in that pile was the Heart Mender. And so I started reading Andy Andrews. I always loved him. And his books were to die for. He has a couple of really, really great titles. But the one that resonated with me the most was the Heart Mender. And it was a story, as we've talked about German submarine operations off the Gulf Coast of Mexico during World War II. And it is a partially true story. Now, exactly how much of the story is true, I'm not sure we'll ever know. But but there were German POW camps near that area in Alabama during World War II. And it's highly possible that there was someone from a German submarine who washed ashore and ended up with a young lady from that area.
Wow.
And that is, of course, the romance in this story. But I have always felt that was going to be a movie. And I asked Andy about it, and he said, "Oh, I got an option on it." So I let it go for a couple of years. And every couple of years, I would kind of check back with him. And finally, the last time I asked him, he said, "Well, I just signed another option." I don't know, okay. And then a day later, he called back and said, "Actually, I haven't signed the option yet. Let's talk about this." And through several different conversations, I ended up basically getting permission to run with it as a producer. So I reached out to my, at that time, acquaintances, Andrew and Adam, Noble Story Company. And they saw the light in that too and came alongside me, and we put together a team, and they bought the rights to the story, and we've been whacking away at it. As Andrew said, it was a series for a while. We've been whacking away at it for over a couple of years now.
Wow. That is great. That is great. Now, how did you get it, Edgar? How did you get into producing movies? Or is this your first one?
No, I've done several. Harold Kronk, who directed God's Not Dead, is a friend of mine, and we grew up in the same nothing town in western Michigan, Scottville, Michigan, population 1,250. And although we're from different generations, we were able to get together through a mutual friend. And he was trying to promote a project that I'd helped him fund, and sleeping on my couch in Los Angeles. And he said, "Hey, I've got these scripts." And I looked at him, I said, "Well, this is a great little story, Mickey Matson and the Copperhead Conspiracy. And I kind of like that. We might go back to Michigan and raise a few $100,000 and make a movie." He said, "Well, would you help me produce it?" And I said, "Well, sure. Can't be anything worse than producing a record." And that was just ridiculous. But I didn't know any better. And to Harold's credit, he approached my time there with a teacher's heart. So I learned the difference between a grip and a best boy, and I learned the movie business. That was a little over 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I've done 4, 5, 6 feature films since then.
Wow. Well, that is amazing. I love to hear the backstories of, the story that you guys are trying to tell, because I think, man, if more people could hear, kind of how a movie takes place, or comes together, they'd understand that, not, especially in the faith world. I mean, we know that it's not luck. It wasn't happenstance. It was God kind of orchestrating all this together to put you all together to hopefully someday we'll be able to see this movie called Heart Mender on the big screen. And I know that is your guys' goal.
And a little other interesting story that we found out since working together. Edgar mentioned that, when he first approached Andy, this was under option. And Andrew Hyatt was mentioning back in his crazy days, he was working for Empower Pictures. Well, one of the early versions of this movie actually might have been actually Andrew's desk back at Empower Pictures, 10, 12 years ago. And
Wow.
so here we are, decade later, and we're all working on this project together.
That is great. Now, maybe Andrew Hyatt, this is a question for you. Where do you see this going as far as, bringing faith into it, or redemption? Like you said, you like to write and direct stories that involve redemption. How does this play into that kind of storyline?
Yeah, I think it's a little simpler in a way than a lot of these other ones, because it's just naturally throwing two very different people together that are from two sides of the war. So you have a German and an American widow, and their early interactions go exactly how you would imagine that going in the height of the war, which is, I'm going to kill you, basically.
Right.
But then I think it's just a beautiful statement on humanity, on how do we find humanity in one another when maybe the world's circumstances and situations tell us you're supposed to hate these people, you need to hate these people. How do you even look at someone as a human being? And I don't know that answer without faith. I actually don't. I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
I don't know if it's possible. Maybe it is, and maybe I'm not giving human beings enough credit, but I just don't know how it's possible without faith to look beyond that hatred and start to treat somebody, how you would want to be treated, right? I mean, that's kind of a basic of the gospel. And so, yeah, that's how this plays out. And it's a great love story, which I've always wanted to do, a great kind of, epic love story. But at the heart of it, no pun intended, it really is about, I've been through tragedy, you've been through tragedy. Maybe we can find a common denominator there, that we can start looking at each other as human beings, created by God, rather than what the world says we're supposed to think about each other. So there's beautiful moments of that. And I wouldn't say it's preachy or heavy-handed. I would say Andy did a great job with the book and the story of just letting it organically play out, right? I think a lot of the moments feel like two people stuck in an unfortunate situation trying to navigate it, but it doesn't feel like, oh, let me preach to you about my philosophy of life. Let me preach to you. It's just sort of like, it's awkward. It's like I should turn this guy in. I have a Nazi. He ends up not being a Nazi. I got to throw that out there right now, because that's really important to the story. But I've got this German on my couch,
Right,
who's been shot. What am I supposed to do? Well, if I just look at him as a human being and not a German, I should take care of this guy. I should, again, no pun intended, I should mend his wounds. I should offer him food. I should, because that's the right thing to do.
right.
But that's not easy at
Right.
all. That's not easy at all. So yeah, I'm excited about how do you let two actors let that really breathe and let that play out, so that the audience really goes on the ride of, wow, this feels real. This feels like if this happened to me, I'm not going to be able to think of an equivalent today, but that you'd say, whoa, okay, no, this is real. This is how it might go down.
Well, it's the scripture of love
Yeah.
your enemy. It's no matter what, our goal as Christians, man, if Christians did this more often, is to love, instead of, just mouth off the things that we do, but actually love people, which is an action word. It's not, it's something that we do for people. That would make the world a lot better place if we actually did those things.
And if I can hop in and just speak on it, I got the pleasure of being able to check out the script a little bit early and read the book, and it really does take you on this this pull. You're wanting to not root for this guy because quote unquote he's the enemy, but it tugs at your humanity. And the film does a great job of just like easing that in, and then by the end of it you're just rooting for him, which is again a very interesting pull, because the history of of World War II, and you know the story of the Nazis, and then you're like, okay, he's not a Nazi, but hold on, like, what does that look like? He's not a Nazi, then why is he fighting? And this just emotional roller coaster. It was a great read, and I'm stoked.
Yeah, I just got through watching The Band of Brothers again.
Oh yeah.
I think it came out in 2001, and now it's on Netflix, and I just watched the series over the last couple of weeks. And when you're talking about that, I'm thinking, man, that wouldn't go over in The Band of Brothers. They'd shoot them right outright, being German. But what a great story, and what a great way that God is lining all of this up for you guys. So, Andrew, how is Noble Story? How are you going to market this out to the public? Because you kind of have two veins. You either have kind of the church faith vein, or you have the secular vein and hope the church gets involved behind it. Not to put you on the spot by any means, but like, what do you vision that out looking like?
Yeah, I think what really drives our company is creators who have amplified the truth of the gospel, but have played well in the mainstream market. If you think of people like C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia is one of the best pieces of literature in the Christian faith, and yet nobody ever calls it a Christian book. In fact, Netflix is making a series on the Chronicles of Narnia right now, and I'm pretty sure they're not classifying it as a Christian movie.
They're probably ruining it.
Yeah, but it's this beautiful thing of allowing faith to be displayed in a way that people, regardless of their backgrounds, can ingest it and break it down and think about it. One of the things I'm very passionate about is a lot of times we say that, if you're making a Christian movie, I hear a lot of people pitch it to investors. We're taking the gospel to the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true to some extent, but I think there are a lot of people that don't go and see it because it's a Christian movie, and that's not where they're at. And I'm very passionate about, hey, if we're going to have a conversation with people, we need to make sure that there's somebody there that we're talking to.
Right.
So how do we get them in to the theater to listen to these stories? How do we get them to listen to the truth so that the truth can change their life?
That's great.
So,
go ahead.
In the same way that the Chronicles of Narnia appeals both to the church and the mainstream market, that's going to be the backbone of our strategy with this film. Is the church will recognize, followers of Christ will recognize the truth in this story. Right. But people, regardless of their background, can come in and be, enraptured in just an entertaining story, and also challenged by this very different way of thinking about people. Right. And wonder, if we've done our job right. At the end of the day, when they leave the movie theater, they're wondering, man, would I have reacted that same way in this situation? What caused, Helen, our main character, to respond that way? What caused Joseph to treat her this way? So
it's awesome.
That's our goal.
I had the director and the producers from Nefarious on when that movie came out. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they kind of went the secular route, and it's a really good movie. It's called Nefarious. And it's got the dude from Boondock Saints. I just went brain dead. But anyway, they kind of just did a secular style movie, but it's got God all the way through it, and it's about a guy who's in prison. He's getting ready to go to death row, and he's possessed. But they got a psychiatrist in front of him, and they just have this debate, if you will, just about what Satan is doing to the world, is really what it is. And you look at the poster for the movie, and it looks like a major horror flick, kind of deal. But man, it's got God peppered all throughout it, and Jesus peppered all throughout it, and they did a really good job with that. So,
Sean Flannery
is who was in it. Thank you. But all right, so what can we do for you guys and with you guys as you guys are in the planning stages and getting ready to start promoting this? How can we come alongside of you, and how can our audience come alongside of you and help promote the this movie and get excited about when you guys do start filming and get it out, and what can we do for you?
Well, Jody, you said it best. Go out and buy a ticket and watch The Blind this weekend.
Amen.
If The Blind does well, hey, this is part of our industry, and a rising tide lifts all ships. And so let's go help The Blind do well this weekend. That's going to directly impact our project. Not only do we have the director of The Blind working on our project, but like I said, it's the same industry.
Right.
And we need Christians to say, I value this in an industry that's increasingly amplifying darkness and, and evil. We need to stand up and say, you know what? There needs to be more light in the movie theaters.
Amen.
There needs to be more redemptive stories. So go and support that movie. As far as the Heartmender, follow us on Instagram. It's a great way to stay in touch. Follow Andrew Hyatt on Instagram, see what he's up to. We all have Instagram channels, so that's probably the best way to stay in the know.
Awesome. And those will be in the comments for everybody as well.
By the way, guys, we've all seen The Blind and previewed it, and it's arguably one of the better movies to happen this year. It has a really huge emotional impact on me, and I just want to amen that even more. It's a great film. Go see it.
Yes. Amen. Amen. Well, really quick, Edgar, what do you have in the future? You got anything else coming out that you're working on, or are you just trying to get this out and enjoy you might as well go ahead and get out of Michigan between now and spring. You're not going to be anything but snow.
No, I'm not crazy about January and February. Yeah, there's better things to do than shovel snow. So I've got a couple of, I'm still in the music business, and I got a couple of Christmas concerts coming up in the front end of December. And then I'll go back to my home in California and spend some time with my family and my wife and prep for this. Hopefully we get this movie shot in.
Praise God.
Now, what part of California are you from?
I live in Santa Clarita in Newhall proper. It's about 30 miles north of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's where I'm originally from as well.
Andrew Hyde, how about you?
Yeah, obviously this weekend I'll just be, I'm just gonna sit back. I'm not gonna check the box office and do all that roller coaster. Just do some family stuff and but yeah, I have a film coming out, Greg Kinnear film coming out at the Heartland Film Festival next week. So I'll be out in Indianapolis next Friday. I think it opens the festival. Yeah, just this beautiful movie. We're just hoping if we can get this up and running early next year, so that people can see it around the end of next year. As you know, these things take forever, but
right.
that'd be a gift. So yeah, just excited to meet these guys, and it's amazing what God starts to do, and I'm sure everybody here has this experience when you just allow God to kind of work through it. You just end up meeting incredible people and talented, but man, just having the same heart and the same vision for the world is a game changer. And so I'm grateful to have met these guys, and to give people your audience hope out there. There is a growing community like this of very like-minded, strong believers that have an artistic bent that, like Andrew said, really just want to see options in the theater and on your television screens of, you know what, you don't have to watch this. You can watch this and the quality is just as good and the story is going to resonate much more with you. So yeah, just, prayers for all of us from your audience would be amazing as we keep embarking on this journey.
Amen. That's great. Great. So Andrew, how about Noble Story? What do you guys got in the future?
Yeah, we've got all sorts of projects that we're working on. There's one that we're working on with the U.S. military that we're excited to get off the ground. Can't really say much about the details of that. These things, it's the film industry. It's all shaping up and it's all fluid. But I can say we're very excited about what's going on with the company, and we're excited to share more information as we can. But very busy. We've mentioned a couple of Christian philosophers today, and there may or may not be a project related to some of those coming out. But
Yeah.
again,
Okay.
too early to say any of these details, but there's a lot of exciting stuff going on behind the scenes.
Well, great. Well, great. Well, guys, we will be praying for you and all that you do, and we would want to pray that God will just continue to give you that spiritual boldness that allows you to stand firm in an industry that doesn't necessarily like what you do or sometimes what you say, and we'll try to hold you down, including the social media companies as well. And we pray that you're able to reach millions, even if not billions, for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of your visions with all of from the directing to the producing to all of that. And we thank you for what you do and standing up for the faith. And we love you guys, and we'll be praying for you. And let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you to get it out there. We'll be there for you.
Thank you, Jody.
Amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Amazing.
Amen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
All right. Well, God bless you guys. Y'all have a great day. And folks, make sure that you go out and see The Blind. It opens tonight and this weekend. Get your tickets, get your groups together, get your small groups together, get your church together, and go out and watch The Blind. And let's see it soar in the box office. Love you guys. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.